Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your favorite twin, and I hope you're ready for another read aloud of The Smoking Mirror. So, Carol and Johnny are knee deep into Miklan, and seems like they're there for the long haul. So, hopefully, they have some fun along the way, and we will too, but we will see. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started with Chapter 7. Chapter 7. I'm pretty sure Johnny doesn't get it. Shoatol is trying to warn us about what will happen if we can't trust each other. The Menso nearly slipped into the depths because of the chip on his shoulder. Why can't he just understand that I would never do anything to hurt him, that my advice is for his good? As Shoatol crossed the final mile or so to the inner shore of the river, Carol contemplated ways of broaching the subject with her brother without making him mad. He had their mother's explosive personality, her tendency to make snap judgments and rush to conclusions without all the evidence. Most of the time, because of how insightful and perceptive the two of them were, those conclusions were correct, which made it even harder to convince them to slow down and review the evidence. Carol and her dad, on the other hand, took their time when making decisions. Perhaps they even took too much time. They listened carefully to other points of view, read all sorts of material about a subject before slowly synthesizing a response. Carol understood, of course, that there were situations in which time just didn't permit that sort of thoroughness. And that's why we were such a good team. Our family balanced itself. If Johnny and I are going to get mom back, we're going to have to find that balance again. Before she knew it, they had made it across. Shoatol's broad paws stepped carefully onto the shattered gray stones that lined the river bank. After a few minutes, they found themselves on a sandy plain on which strange stunted trees twisted like palsied hands. Before them lay low rocky hills that built gradually toward a steep mountain range whose slopes glittered blackly in the eternal gloom. Obsidian, Johnny muttered, slipping from Shoatol's back. He stood on one leg, pulling off his other sneaker. His white socks contrasted starkly with the slate-colored sand. That is just freaking great. We've got to scale monuments of sharp volcanic rock, and I'm in my stupid socks. Well, Carol said, trying to follow Shoatol's advice and inject a little humor. The hobbits crossed Mordor in their bare feet, so you've got to keep perspective, no? Gay? Did Carolina Garza just make a funny? Johnny rolled his eyes but smiled. Excuse me, but what is a hobbit? Carol dropped to the ground and patted the hellhound reassuringly. Literary illusion, a sort of big-footed elf. Dude, that's sacrilege. Hobbits are not elves. She waved him away dismissively. Whatever. You never even read the books, Johnny. You just watch the movies obsessively. She leaned toward Shoatol. You know what movies are, right? Certainly. I visited several Nickelodeons in San Francisco and Los Angeles before I left the realm of men. Huh? The only Nickelodeon Carol knew was the cable station. Whoa, that was a long time ago, Johnny muttered. To Carol, he added smugly, Nickelodeons were the first movie theaters, way back in the early 1900s. Thanks for the heads up. She gave an exaggerated sigh, but was inwardly happy. We can still josh around. Good sign. But yeah, going back to your footwear problem. Shoatol walked away from them and shook himself vigorously, sending a spray of cold water in all directions. I keep telling you, he growled once he was dry enough to stop, that you don't need shoes. You need to learn how to shift. You won't make it through the 9 deadly deserts otherwise. But the truth is, Carol insisted, that we can't control the transformations. I mean, the last time I was sort of half aware of what was going on, I was asleep, and then I felt this pressure build up inside of me, and I just, let go, let it remake me. I was able to sense through my tonal and stuff, but I wasn't the one that caused it to happen. You see? All right, let's go ahead and answer that first question. What must Carol and Johnny do to make it past the nine deadly deserts? This is a simple recall question, so we're going to start off a little on the easy side. Make sure you are looking for that information in this paragraph right here. I keep telling you, he growled once he was dry enough to stop, that you don't need shoes. You need to learn how to shift. You won't make it in through the nine deadly deserts otherwise. I don't like that yellow color. Let's go with blue today. Nice, I guess turquoise more like. Whatever, can't win. Anyway, let's do our sentence starter. To get through the deserts, they must blank. All right, let's continue. Shoatol nodded his enormous head. Of course I see. What you're failing to realize is that your animal self is always there, waiting, anxious to step forward. There's not much you have to do to convince it. Simply look for it, just beneath the surface of your conscious mind, and call to it. It will respond eagerly, I assure you. The hellhound looked at her with an expectant gaze. When she did nothing, he scuffed his right paw against the sand. What, now? You want me to try to transform here? No time like the present, Carolina. You too, Juan Angel. Carol closed her eyes, attempting to focus, searching for that glowing, vital, hungry part of herself. But her mind kept snapping back to their predicament, to her concern about her mother, to her confusion about the trials ahead. Gritting her teeth in frustration, she groaned and stomped her foot. Ugh, I can't do it. I can't focus. It isn't about focus, girl, but a lack thereof. Carol glanced at Johnny, whose face was twisted up so comically that she almost laughed despite herself. After a few more seconds, he muttered a curse and opened his eyes. Forget it. I got nothing. Shoatl bared his teeth in a feral gesture. What you need to do is confront the perils of this place head on. That'll knock you free of your comfortable mindsets. He sounded positively angry. Carol was rather taken aback. The danger you're in, that your mother is in, that we are all of us in, hasn't really penetrated your barely adolescent brains. You act as if this were a game. You've never had to face a real trial in your lives. You're complacent. What the hell are you talking about? Johnny was livid. Complacent? No trials? What do you think we've been living the last 6 months, huh? Not knowing where our mom is, watching our dad get drunker and drunker every day? You're not being fair, man. Fair? Johnny, fairness is irrelevant. If you can't transform, you can't save your mother. If you think I'm being unduly harsh, I suggest you imagine her dying in the dark, all alone, because you couldn't free yourself from your own self control. They stood in silence, regarding one another. So much for humor and joy, huh? All right, let's go ahead and answer that second question. Why does Shoatol accuse Carol and Johnny of being complacent? You'll find clues to this in this paragraph. What you need to do is confront the perils of this place head on. That'll knock you free of your comfortable mindsets. And then he goes on to say, you act as if this were a game. You've never had to face a real trial in your lives. And then he ends with that word, complacent. So why is he saying that they're complacent? What is that? What does he mean by that? A sentence starter could be, he accuses them of being complacent because blank. All right, let's continue. Well, come on, the hellhound said finally. Let's begin. First, you will cross this range, the Tepeme Monomasitia, or Crashing Mountains. Then come the deserts, blackness, bats, and jaguars. Cold, haunted ruins, lava plains, ashes, heart eating demons, obsidian winds, and a putrid lake. Then you stand before the Lord and Lady of Death, and once past them, you finally confront the villain who holds your mother prisoner. The Zapame have given you some tools. I am providing you some assistance. But in the end, it is the two of you who must rise to the challenges and overcome the obstacles. Words of warning. You will neither feel hunger or sleepiness. You may nonetheless be tempted to eat or sleep. Do not. Even though you will become physically very tired, you cannot afford to rest much. The time is short. Your enemies know you are here. Move quickly and face them with courage. He began to lope toward the hills. The twins exchanged a look and dashed after him. At first, they kept a decent pace, crossing the sandy plain with flying strides. At the hills, they slowed somewhat, bounding from rock to rock, avoiding fissures and scree. As the hills began to become the roots of the obsidian rich mountains, their path grew steeper, and they had to use their hands more and more, nicking themselves occasionally on sharp points and edges. Carol heard more and more muttered curses coming from her brother, so she looked down at his feet. His socks were stained red with blood. Stop, she ordered. Johnny, your feet. My God, Shoatol, look at his feet. The hellhound gave a low snarl. I told you what you needed to do. That you refused to comply is another matter entirely. Johnny sat down heavily on the flinty slope and examined the soles of his feet. This sucks, big time. He closed his eyes, lay back, and folded his arms across his chest. What are you doing? Shoatl demanded. Going to sleep, man. That's the only way I know how to shift. I've told you, you can't sleep in Mictlan, child. Johnny's eyes shot open. You know, I'm getting real tired of your freaking attitude. I mean, yeah, you're the shadow soul of Quetzalcoatl or whatever, and you helped us cross the humongous river, but could you just back the heck off? Shoato's blue eyes seemed to glow like burning alcohol. I see that what you require are very drastic measures. The hellhound reared up on its hind legs. Oh crap, thought Carol. He's going to attack Johnny to force a transformation. But instead, Shoatl began to quiver and shrink, fingers emerging from the tips of his ever smaller paws, his snout pulling back into his face, red hair falling about him like autumn pine needles. Within seconds, a man stood before them. He had medium length blonde hair sweeping back from his lined forehead, and blue eyes surrounded by a network of fine wrinkles and scars. Wrapped around him was a red furred animal skin that covered most of his sun toasted flesh. Let's see how long you manage without my guidance, he said in a cultured, old fashioned voice. Spinning curtly on his heel, he stepped behind an outcropping and was gone from sight. Carol followed, but there was nothing. He had disappeared without a trace. Fantastic. He vanished. Figures, whatever. Who needs him? Here, give me a hand. Carol helped her brother to his feet. Wincing, he leaned on her, and together they made their way up the winding, steep path that the passage of a million souls had only faintly carved into the obsidian mountain. Soon Johnny was leaving bloody footprints behind. Okay, let's answer the third question. Why does Shoatl disappear? So you will get your answer just reviewing the dialogue between Shoatl and Johnny, specifically what Johnny says. You know, I'm getting real tired of your freaking attitude. I mean, yeah, you're the shadow soul of Quetzalcoatl or whatever, and you helped us cross the humongous river, but could you just back the heck off? And pay attention to that last part, back the heck off. You know, what does Shoatl end up ultimately doing, right? If you'd like a sentence starter, you can use He disappears because blank. Okay, let's finish up the read aloud and answer the last question. This is insane. You'd think that the Lord of Creation or whatever would have enough compassion to help us out. We're 12 years old, Quetzalcoatl, in case you've forgotten. Cut us some slack, okay? Johnny had begun to whimper softly when they finally reached the top. A flat defile stretched before them, wide enough for 3 people to walk abreast, lined by glittering crags that loomed darkly above. A stiff moaning wind blew toward them from beyond the passage. Thousands of years of erosion had worn the floor smooth and level, and a smile of relief spread across Johnny's face as he took his first few steps. Oh man, that feels good. Nice and cool too. Like the saltillo tile at home when mom mopped. You know what I mean. Carol nodded and rubbed her brother's back. Well, according to Clifford, the big red dog, the deserts start just beyond this. What did he say the first one was? Blackness, right? That doesn't sound too bad. They walked another 30 feet or so when a horrible crashing sound made them draw up short. What the? Johnny began. They walked a few more paces, and the sound came again, accompanied by a tremor beneath their feet. Johnny gingerly extended one reddened sock and crash. They stood still for several minutes. There were no more explosions or tremors, so they started ambling down the defile. They'd crossed some 50 feet or so of passage that curved gradually toward the left when, without warning, the crags on either side, not 4 yards ahead, slammed into each other with a deafening smash and a hail of splintered rock and obsidian dust, then pulled back to their original positions. Hijo de su Pink Floyd! Johnny screamed, using one of their mother's favorite nonsense curses. Dude, if we had been standing there. Carol's heart pounded mercilessly. Oh, Shoatl, you jerk. You couldn't have mentioned the dangerous smashing rocks? As if in answer, the walls a little further ahead slammed into each other. Carol gripped her brother's forearm. Johnny, I think that. Slam! Less than a foot behind them, the crags collided, coating them both in fine black dust and leaving their ears ringing. Oh my God, Johnny, we are going to be killed! There was a weird expression on her brother's face. He was counting on his fingers and mumbling to himself. What? What are you doing, Johnny? Her voice was strained by panic. Hang on, Carol. Relax a second. It's like a video game. Huh? Yeah, there's a pattern. You figure it out and you can get through. One crash, followed a minute later by another, and then one more just a few seconds after that. Then something like 4 minutes passes and the pattern starts again. Carol suddenly understood. Which means we have less than 3 minutes, dude, so run! All right, let's answer that last question. What is Johnny's plan for getting past the falling rocks? Make sure you are paying particular attention to these few lines right here. There was a weird expression on her brother's face. He's counting on his fingers and mumbling to himself. What? What are you doing, Johnny? Her voice was strained by panic. Hang on, Carol. Relax a second. It's like a video game. Huh? Yeah, there's a pattern. You figure it out and you can get through. So based on that, how is he planning to get them through this little part of Mictlan? If you'd like a sentence starter, you can use his plan is blank. All right, everybody, that is it for today's read aloud. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, take care.